Most people think that business to business and business to consumer, there are two different categories. What if I tell you they are the same? However, just B2B, it's like B2C, but on steroids. Today I will share you information how those two categories are the same and what is the main differences between those two. I will share with you about the mindset, about the sales process and how we should sell in both of those categories. Hello everyone, my name is Adam Skoneczny and you are watching Go Global Asia podcast. After many years in Asia and helping companies to scale and sell to the foreign client, I have created this podcast to share with you what actually works. This is value-driven channel where I share with all professionals how to grow the business internationally, how to sell to the global market, and how to create successful global collaboration. Hello everyone, so today we have this episode where I am actually looking at business to business and business to client categories, all sales process, mindset and sales techniques. Why I have decided to discuss about this? Because I see that many founders, sales professionals making one huge mistake. Namely, they actually separate those two categories and they don't learn from each other. And you know what? I actually made the same mistake. The problem here is that when we treat in B2B completely separate, we're thinking only about the business, about return on investment and other practical stuff. When we think about B2C, we're thinking only about human emotion and quick sales cycles. We need to learn how to connect those two because at the end of the day, we are selling to the people. So in today's episode, I will share with you about the mindset we should have when we do those B2B and B2B sales approaches, the sales cycle here, the main differences and the things that are aligned, and last but not least, how we actually should sell to those two different categories. So let me start. Let's start with the mindset. In B2B, we have this mindset that we should talk only about the business. We should talk only about the return on investment. We should talk only on the practical things that the buyer or the other business will receive. On the other hand, in the B2C, we're thinking about the emotional approach of the buyer. How to convince them, how to act quickly, how to give them quick wins. So, as you can see, if I compare it in the old way, you can notice that this is two completely different categories. However, the new mindset, it tells us like this. If we have a B2B and we have all those practical things, we need to consider about them. But on the top of them, we need to put the human aspect. At the end of the day, we need to consider that the people buying from us and behind the business, there is the person, one or two or three decision makers who are the human and they have their personal agenda. What's that mean? They have the fears, they have the needs, they have desires. And you need to figure out what are those to make sure that you can close the deal. Let me give you an example, actually from my personal experience, how that in the past work out and what I have decided to change. Before, when I was doing B2B, I was thinking that, okay, I need to give a lot of value. I need to give them maybe return on investment. I need to give them cost optimization. I need to give them increase of revenue. I need to give them more time. All practical things I was just focused on. And then I noticed that I'm not closing as much as I should. Until the moment I realized that when I work with one founder, he shared with me something deep, which I never thought about. The deep sharing from the founder was that whenever he make a decision to buy something, it's not only about the return on investment, it's not only about cost optimization, it's also about if the decision is good and if the decision is bad, in the sense that if something wrong happened, all employees, all stakeholders. Everyone will look at him and blame him. So this was the personal fear of the person to making the bad decision. And when I understood that, I noticed that I need to consider about the human factor in the B2B as well. And in the opening of this video, I told you you need to think about human factor on steroids. Why? Because in the B2B, you might have a few stakeholders who are responsible for multiple different things, but also responsible to make decisions. So, as you can see, the human factor is extremely important and we shouldn't forget about this. So the mindset here is just remember that on other side of the table, there is the human and we need to figure out not only what he needs on the shallow level, but what he needs on the very deep level and what he fears on very deep level. So the second element I would like to focus on is the sales process. And here is actually the biggest difference between those two categories. Obviously, when we consider about B2B, the sales process, it's a little bit more complicated, it's longer, it has more stages. And how long it is, it's actually correlated to the value of the deal. So if the deal is small value, let's say $1,000 or $500 or $30, the sales process might be much faster. However, if we're selling something for 500,000, 1 million, the whole sales process will extend. And additionally, we will have many more point of the checks. Where in the B2C, we have a pretty fast buying cycles in most of the cases, where the people are driven by emotion, by desire, by need or fulfill at the right moment, right time. And this is the key here. If you are reach to your prospect in the right moment, then the closing the deal is much easier. Obviously, there are some B2C cases that we buy home, for instance, and then the sales cycle is much longer. But usually sales cycle is not much longer because the clients need, it's because the sellers need to verify buyers. So you can see that this is the main difference. Keep in the mind that you need to consider what is the value of the product. You need to consider also about your buyer. If the expense they are going to put for this product, is this huge for them and they need more time, or this is small expense for them and you can close them faster? Because this is really important as well. It's not only about the product and value of the product, but also at the other side. If the buyer in the B2B has a more budget, they will be probably more tend to finalize this much faster. Last but not least, you need to consider how many stakeholders there is in the sales process from the client side and how you should convince them and what they care about. So if you have those all elements, then you can design your sales process, or you can think at least about your sales process, how long it will take. In the B2C, you don't have so much consideration. The buyer coming in, they have a desire, they need to buy something, and they fulfill the desire. Simple as that. So guys, let's move to the last part, which is selling techniques. So here is the area where actually we starting connecting both categories, where the B2B is becoming B2C. Because when we're thinking about the sales strategies, sales technique, we need to think about selling to the people. And those two categories now will go in the parallel. So here, let me give you 3 elements that you need to focus when you're doing the B2B. So first of all, it's those obvious things: return on investment, cost, time optimization, operation optimization, and optimization, cost reduction, increase of revenue. This is the elements what you need to think about and be able to introduce to the buyer. Second, you need to map out stakeholders. From the client side, there is a high chance that if you sell something expensive, there will be multiple stakeholders. There could be CEO who making decision. There could be CFO who is also responsible to make this decision. There could be technical user or technical manager, and then it can be end user as well. All of those four stakeholders will be responsible for making decision. In Western country, it's a little bit different than in Asia, because in Asia, usually CEO making decision. But in the Western country, every person on the high level will take responsibility for this decision. So kind of responsibility is spread around the stakeholders. What's that mean? To win the deal, you need to convince all of them. Last element, and one of the hardest one, you need to figure out what is the fear, desire, and needs of those stakeholders. And I don't mean business needs. Business needs you already map out at the very beginning. But I mean the personal needs, what they're afraid of, why they wouldn't make this decision, how can you convince them, you can secure them, what the guarantee you can provide them that they will feel comfortable with you. As you see, this B2B, it's becoming now a bit more difficult because you have so many stakeholders, everyone care about something else, and then you need to figure out how you can convince all of them. And even worse than that, sometimes they will never join to the meeting. What I mean, you talk to CEO, you know that in the background there is CFO, but he never joined to the meeting. So how you should convince him? This is getting very, very difficult. Guys, if you want me to share with you how to actually sell to somebody who is not in the meeting present, let me know in the comment. I may record for you a separate episode because actually there is a special technique to do it. Now let me go back to the episode summary. So now, if we consider about the B2B and B2C, you see how they are similar in some aspect and where are they different. The most similarity is in the actually mapping out the prospect in the B2B and selling to specific stakeholders. And when you do that, the strategy and the technique or approach is very similar like in the B2C. You have a person behind, they have their personal agenda, they are emotional, they have their fears, and you need to figure out what are they. Except that in the B2B you need to map out the business challenges that you're going to solve and many practical elements. Last but not least, you need to understand about the sales cycle. The sales cycle in B2B is much longer, it has many more stages, many more meetings. In B2C, it's usually much faster, driven by emotional impulses. And that would be the main difference between those two categories. So guys, if this episode helped you to shift a little bit your mindset, give you some information about the B2B and B2C, please hit that subscribe button. It's helping me a lot and it's actually giving me a little bit emotional impulse to keep going and record it for you. Additionally, I would like to hear your thoughts, how you connect those two categories, or if you connect them. If you find that your technique or your system to actually improve your B2B sales process, please share that with us. Thank you so much and I see you in the next episode. Take care.